Hello, legends, and welcome to Blunt Force Healing Podcast, episode 243, titled Day 243, which is self explanatory that this podcast and underpinning it blog is going for 243 days straight since its inception. And today's title is Robin My Shed. Now let me explain because again, this episode will be titled A Dad's Joke Way, which is me twisting titles to make them kind of different. Not sure if interesting, but definitely different, and they might catch an eye of potential reader. Yeah, it's kind of clickbait, but it's not. So let me explain what is behind Robin My Shed. And Robin is not robbing, it's on purpose written Robin because it's about robins, the birds, little tiny birds with a little ginger colored bellies. Very common sight in Ireland. Not sure about the distribution anywhere else on the planet, but certainly an interesting little bird that sings beautifully and is always a calming sight if you happen to have it near you. And we were lucky since we arrived in Donegal that our garden seemed to be a place for those robins that they very often been to. And initially we had a couple of bikes standing in the garden. The robins were coming in and trying to get some insects or some worms. And they liked to hide behind the bikes. So we saw them a lot, and it was like a common visitor for us, one or two robins. And just recently we've got a proper shed in the garden where we can store the bikes now and a couple of other things that have taken too much space in the house. So once we got that shed, robins got interested in hiding behind it and underneath it. And since it's a spring/summertime and the nesting season and the breeding season, so it seems like a pair of robins found it safe to hide underneath the shed. So under the floor of the shed and between the floor and the ground is a little bit of space for the air circulation, so the humidity is not causing any uh, collection of water and rotting of the wood. So the airflow is free, so it's about probably 5 centimeters, maybe more. So between 2 and 3 inches of space between the ground, the lawn, and the shed floor. So they definitely have enough space for little birds to hide there. They probably have some form of nest there. And it's too hard for any predators to get there, so it's a perfect hiding spot. And recently, it seems that we have three small robins. They don't have that beautiful ginger colored belly yet, but they are nice sight regardless. Obviously, there are downsides. They are pooping a lot around the garden, especially close to the shed, so it's not a nice view, but it's nature. We need to give them that space, make sure that they learn to fly properly and find their way out. Then I will probably clean it up a little bit more. The funny sides are that they were not very courageous and just peeked out of the undershed from time to time. Later on, they started getting more courage and look for parents that were constantly trying to get some food and bring it back in. And to the point where they were trying their skills in flying, and one of them hit the balcony door, which was a lot of noise, and we were surprising to see that we thought we thought that something other hit that door, but it looks like it tried to fly close to the door, but it didn't know how to properly slow down or break the pattern and simply hit the bloody glass. So that was one situation. The second that I was witness was when I was observing them for a while, and one of the younger robins tried to follow the parent, and it flew from behind the shed across the garden and hit straight into the wooden fence of a neighbor. So that was another funny situation. Funny because after it disappeared in the grass, I would say a couple of seconds passed, and then it stood back up and obviously walked underneath the fence to the neighbor to look for probably some food, but it doesn't seem like it harmed them. There are still three of them as far as I can see. So the number still matches whatever we've seen at the beginning. So they are fine. But today, my wife probably left the shed door for a moment because she's picking up the hula hoop every morning. And I suspect that one of the young robins was too curious and actually got into the shed. Of course, my wife not knowing it. And when she went back to put the hula hoop into the shed, she got scared, really scared. And she asked me to go there. And I went there, and indeed, there was a small robin sitting at that little window within the shed and trying to get out because it doesn't understand that there's something like a glass that you can see through, so it expects the world behind it to be available, and something invisible stands on its way. I could even see how panicked that little bird was because that little chest was pumping. Probably his heart rate was at the top of his capacity. And obviously, I didn't touch it because some animals might reject the young if they might smell human scent or other scent than their own. So I just circled it enough to cause it to, you know, run away the other direction than the window. And it finally flew away through the open door. It was cool. I recorded it on the video, and Julian just stole it and uploaded it to his YouTube channel as a short. I attached it to the blog post, which you can go to by clicking the link in the podcast description. Apologies for me mumbling a little bit because I'm tired as hell. The last 3 days are taking a toll. I had 2 days in a row when I was running, and actually 3 days of running because the third day was yesterday, soccer match, which is a lot of running anyway. And I can feel that it took a lot of energy, so I need to recover. The weird thing is that today's presentation, that I was to wake up a bit earlier for 8 o'clock, I set my alarm clock for 7 and 6 in the morning to finish up the last touches of the presentation. And I was really afraid that I won't wake up because I returned from Dublin with a huge headache. I went to sleep around, I think, 11 o'clock or something. So I was afraid that's not enough and I might oversleep even the alarm. The weird thing that happened is that I opened my eyes and didn't want to sleep anymore. I felt really recovered and fresh. And it was 5:30 in the morning. So I went down, I made myself a little bit of coffee, and once I drank the coffee, I decided to go for a short walk before that presentation, which was a great idea because there was no people around. Birds were singing all around the shop, and the sun was already on the horizon, albeit behind the clouds, but that daylight was definitely something that I enjoyed. And obviously, fresh air, nice temperature, not cold as I was expecting in the morning. So, great short walk. Presentation went well. Then, obviously, I had a day full of work, but I slowed down a little bit to get the deserved rest, I guess. And something bad happened, really, in terms of blogging, because my commitment was going so well, and today I slipped again. And it's again Friday that I slipped. So the last week on Friday, the downward spiral started that I recovered from on Monday. It was 3 days in a row that I was going very late with the posts and podcast recording. So today it happened again. I have 2 excuses for that, but they are still excuses regardless. After work, I went to pick up Julian from his playdate, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. And I enjoyed talking to his friend parents because we met for the first time, and it was a nice chat, a lot of topics, much longer than I was expecting. And then afterwards, obviously, I had to do the late dinner until the point where we ate between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. So you can imagine I was quite late in the game already, and the post was not published. So I published just a couple of minutes ago. It's on. There's another real bummer because for some reason Twitter started charging for API calls, like other vendors that are integrated with it, and WordPress decided to pull out. and no longer provide the Twitter integration. So I have a manual step when publishing the post. It goes automatically into Facebook, but I need to share it manually on Twitter with relevant hashtags and the title. So it's a bit of pain in the arse, but what can I do? So yes, I'm finishing this episode now to make sure that it's up and running before midnight. Tomorrow I don't have anything specific scheduled, so I expect myself to write the blog post well before 8 p.m. I don't want to jinx it, but it will be really miserable and irresponsible from my side if I won't manage to get back on track tomorrow. I'll leave you now. I'll take that little rest and a good night's sleep, and I'll come back tomorrow in a better shape and hopefully with a better post and episode for you guys. As always, thank you very much for coming and spending that time with me and listening to my mumbling, and talk to you tomorrow.